How many times have you heard someone say, "Oh, I didn't know there was any new Japanese horror movies made after The Ring"? Hopefully you've never heard that before, but I am flabbergasted about how many times I go online to various forums or comment sections and I hear people say that there are no new exciting Japanese horror movies, while at the same time, all they do is recommend films like Noroi, Occult, and The Grudge. Now, they might be great films, but two of those movies are more than 20 years old. Of course there's been new Japanese horror movies since then. It also doesn't help when well-respected museums and art spaces hold a Spotlight on Japanese Horror event, looking directly at you, Acme in Australia. And the newest movie on their playlist is an animated sci-fi film from 2006. Thus, here is a list of 5 newer Japanese horror movies, that being movies from the last decade, from 2015 to 2025, that I think you should watch. And if you have seen any of these movies, leave a comment below to let me know your thoughts of them. The 5 titles on this list are mainstream theatrically released films. In some cases, they even have a Western Blu-ray release or are available on legal streaming websites. As we fast approach the 10-year anniversary of the Sion Sono masterpiece, which was first released on the 11th of July 2015, it would be considered a crime in the deep J-horror circles if you haven't seen this film. A mix of multi-genres mashed together with a heavy sci-fi element complementing the horror overtones, this movie is very clearly one of Sono's best films and comes very highly recommended. If you find high school girls annoying, then you're going to love the iconic opening scene where a school bus full of students gets decapitated. Almost every student on this bus gets killed, and that's just the first of the strange, weird, and bizarre moments that happen in this film, which on reflection is a very interesting social commentary about the role of teenaged girls in society and the external pressures they face while trying to carve out their own individual paths in this crazy thing called life. Featuring a top cast of upcoming actresses for the time, including one of Sono's favourites in Amy Tomite, who went on to star in his Nikatsu Roman porno series revival film Anti-Porno, as well as countless other low and medium budget horror films like Phone of the Dead and Tokyo Vampire Hotel, also directed by Sono. A lot of people dislike this film because they don't quite get it. They don't understand what the ending is trying to tell them. There's a reason for that. It means the movie is talking about them, and they don't like looking into the mirror that the movie has provided. But when thinking of a unique Japanese horror movie that blends gore, mystery, sci-fi, and absurdity, you absolutely can't get much better than Tag. I think there's very little chance that you haven't heard of this film. This 2017 indie darling took the J-horror scene, and indeed the entire horror scene at the time, by storm with its one unique hook. The first 30 minutes of the film is one long, continuous take. When I first watched this film, I almost shut it off after 10 minutes. It looked ridiculous, cheap, and low budget with some terrible acting and effects. It was only after a few more minutes that I had a realization that what I was watching was one long take, and I was instantly glued to the rest of the film. I wanted to see what was going on. If you don't know by now, this movie is about a group of filmmakers who've been tasked with creating a 30-minute live-to-air, one-cut short film about a zombie invasion in an abandoned warehouse. Except unbeknownst to the film crew, the zombies are real and all hell has broken loose on live television, with the quick-thinking director, played hilariously by Takayuki Hamatsu in his first feature film, taking advantage of the situation to get both the best out of his terrified lead actress while simultaneously wanting to create the best zombie short movie ever made. There's a few spin-offs of this movie featuring the original cast, which I've never seen, as well as a French remake that's available to watch on Australian streaming service Umbrella. But it's this version, the original one from 2017, that you'll want to see. A blend of horror, comedy, family drama, and zombies make this one of the most enjoyable J-horror films of the last decade. It's also available on a physical Blu-ray release if you're a collector like me. Those of you after a more traditional, spooky style J-horror flick are definitely advised to check out this title, Kisaragi Station. Reaching into the usual folklore tales and urban legend stories that Japanese horror cinema was known for in the 50s to the 70s, this movie brings the recent urban legend of Kisaragi Station to life on the big screen. A university student researching the topic conducts an interview with a woman who claims to have visited the cursed and mythical station after a late-night ride on a particular train. It is said that when a particular order of events are followed, the path to the station is unlocked and the visitor is trapped in a parallel world, unable to escape. Our curious student makes it to the station and alights the train, entering into an unfamiliar world where she meets a series of other passengers who don't know what year it is. They all work together to look for a way out, but it's not quite as simple as it seems. This movie has a great gimmick. There's a section of the film that's presented in the first-person view. Now, I know this is nothing new. Doom from 2005, starring The Rock and the legendary Carl Urban, featured a much hyped first-person scene as well, but it was a big enough selling point for this film to be clearly marketed on the trailer. In mid-2025, a sequel for the movie, tentatively titled Kisaragi Station RE, was announced, where the director of the first film, Jiro Nagai from the popular 2-channel no Noroi series, will team back up with model and YouTuber Miyu Honda, who played Asuka the schoolgirl from the first movie, to tell her origin story, and hopefully it's as good as, if not better, than this film. Also, if you're curious about more Japanese movies using the first-person perspective gimmick, director Jiro Nagai created a film in 2024 called, funnily enough, FPS. This hour-long movie follows a girl inspecting apartments who accidentally opens a door to the demon world. It's a fun movie, and I will tell you more about it in the honorable mention section. Groundhog Day style movies are nothing new. The obvious movie that comes to mind is Groundhog Day with Bill Murray, where he plays a weatherman stuck in a time loop in a small town where he needs to figure out a sequence of events in order to progress to the next day. Now, Groundhog Day is not a horror film, but its premise certainly suits one. A modern audience will most likely instantly think of the 2017 American horror film Happy Death Day and its 2019 sequel. These highly entertaining comedy horror movies revolve around a girl who must work out who's killing her, or ultimately trying to kill her, and why, before she can move on to the next day in her life. And now, with that long intro out of the way, allow me to introduce you to this 2022 film called Karada Sagashi, which loosely translates to Find My Body or Body Search. This movie was picked up and repackaged by Netflix in 2023 as Remember, and while I don't quite hate the title, I don't think it's as good as Find My Body. But it's a clever foreshadowing of the movie that you're about to watch. 6 high school students are told to meet at midnight on their school campus. They're told they need to find the body parts of a dismembered girl that have been scattered in different classrooms. Hunting them is a mysterious figure who will kill them on sight. Their goal is to find all the body parts and return it to a central location where they will essentially win the game. But if they all get killed before finding all the parts, they have to repeat the events again until they get it right. It's a great concept because instead of having one person who needs to try and figure it out, we have 6, all with different motivations and agendas. They struggle to work together, creating tension, but realize that the end goal means they can escape this hell. What I like about the movie is it's not afraid to kill its main cast multiple times. Kana Hashimoto and Gordon Maeda suffer around 10 grisly deaths between them, something highly unusual for headline actors. It's not a perfect film. The moody characters will annoy you and the plot's rather wafer thin, but it's something fun and different and worth a watch. This is also getting a sequel called The Late Night, set to release in late 2025. Now hold on to your hats, J-horror lovers, because I believe this one's getting an official UK release later in 2025. When it comes to big-name J-horror movie directors with a reputation for always trying something new and exciting, the only name you should think of is Takashi Shimizu. Responsible for the iconic Ju-On series, encapsulating both the Grudge and the Curse timelines, as well as the American remakes, Shimizu's never stopped working to find the next big horror concept. 2005 saw the release of the highly acclaimed Reincarnation, while in 2009 he helmed The Shock Labyrinth, a movie inspired by the famous super scary Labyrinth of Fear attraction at the Fuji-Q Highlands theme park near Mount Fuji in Japan. He then got busy in 2020 with the first of his Village of Terror trilogy movies called Howling Village, which was quickly followed up by Suicide Forest Village and Oxhead Village in the preceding years. Of those three, I would only really recommend the Oxhead Village. In between those films was Homunculus, a rather confusing and bland movie based on a manga of the same name which you can watch on Netflix. But 2023 was a very good year for Shimizu. He released two films, the VR-inspired ghost film Immersion and Sana, which is also known as Everybody's Song. Sana was an interesting experimental horror film that blended the J-pop music industry with a story about a bullied schoolgirl who loved to capture the sounds of people dying. It was a fun film, but it was nothing memorable. Realizing he might have a potential hit on his hands, he quickly followed it up in 2024 with this film, Anoko wa Dare, which translates to Who's That Girl? That girl in question was Sana, and this is her origin story, now officially titled in English as Sana Let Me Hear. Since the first movie wasn't released in English, this movie omits calling it Part 2, but this origin story is a sequel to the first movie, and it is so good. A substitute teacher covering for a supplementary class notices there's a mysterious girl in her classroom. No one seems to know who this girl is, but it appears that she belongs there. This girl has the power to hum a tune that puts people under some kind of trance. From there, they can bend to her will. This movie uses a handful of characters from the original movie to continue on Sana's story, where we find out more about her tragic family life, the bullying she suffered at school, and what she hopes to achieve by collecting the sounds of a victim's death. There are some genuinely creepy moments in this film, and I would highly recommend that you watch this one when you get the chance. Now I have a super bonus because I kind of like this film. This is Sadako DX. When most people mention they've seen a Japanese horror film, they'll most likely mention one of three well-known franchises: The Grudge, Dark Water, or The Ring. Interestingly, what all of these have in common are rather half-decent American remakes, which is why most people seem to know about these films. Specifically, if we're talking about The Ring, then we all know who Sadako is. The long-haired spirit in a white dress who emerges from the TV screen after you've watched the cursed videotape to hunt you down after you've received the dreaded phone call informing you that you have 7 days. Japan's never stopped making movies about Sadako, even though you probably haven't seen the last handful of releases. In 2013, there was the release of the 3D double feature, which wasn't well received. A 2015 April Fool's Day joke involving a mock-up of Sadako from The Ring and Kayako from the Ju-On series ended up turning into a real movie in 2016, directed by horror master Koji Shiraishi, called Sadako vs. Kayako. Then in 2009, there was the failed reboot of the series, simply just called Sadako, made by director of the first film Hideo Nakata. A divisive movie in the series that attempted to shift the character of Sadako into a modern time. The general negative reaction to the film was thought to have killed off the character for good, or at least a long time. That long time ended up being only 3 years. Because in 2022, the announcement of Sadako DX kind of took everyone by surprise. Realizing the franchise needed to go in a different direction, production house Kadokawa decided to play into the campiness surrounding the character of Sadako. Thus, we end up with this film. Another extremely divisive film in the series. I feel it's just tragically misunderstood. You see, this is actually a comedy movie, and not only is it a comedy, it's a social commentary about the effects of the COVID-19 lockdowns, the online hysteria around the pandemic, and the power of the internet to make something go viral. In order to achieve this goal, something needed to change, and that was the time limit. Out the door goes the 7-day warning. That's now only relevant to the old school VHS version. In comes the new 24-hour deadline, an upgrade made courtesy of a modified version of the video spread over the dark web. Do you remember the dark web? Adorable actress Fuka Kashiba takes on the role of Ayaka Ichigo, a graduate student with an IQ of 200 who believes that she can solve the mystery of Sadako once and for all. Except Sadako has another trick up her sleeve, the ability to appear as someone else. if you approach this movie in the correct mindset, that is, this is a comedy movie that lampoons Sadako as much as it honors her, then you're bound to really enjoy this title. Those who vocally hate this film, they're very protective of the character of Sadako. As a side note, in 2024, a low-budget flick called Sadako Pendant of Mourning was released onto Japanese Amazon streaming. This movie has nothing to do with the original The Ring series, nor is it recognised as being part of the Sadako lore. For all intents and purposes, this is a fan film using the Sadako character. So it's not just those 5 or 6 movies that I would only recommend. In fact, throughout this whole video, I've mentioned other titles that you should look into. Well, here's a list of a couple more that I think are worthy. The director for Missing Child Videotape is being billed as the next great J-horror director. Under the tutelage of Takashi Shimizu, it's easy to see why. This is a slow burn mystery horror film that should appeal to fans of movies like Noroi and Cairo, and I predict this will be a cult hit in the next decade. As of publishing, this movie hasn't been released yet, so why am I mentioning it then? Because it's been a long time since a trailer of a movie has piqued my interest in a film. This one is based on the video game of the same name and looks to be extremely faithful to its source material. I can't wait to see if I'm right about this one. Hands up, who loves splatter and slasher films? Then this is the title for you. A mysterious masked killer stalks a girl for almost a decade, killing anyone she gets close to or dares cause her any harm. This movie piles on the blood and gore and is ridiculously silly, but well worth the price of admission. Hideo Nakata's take on the concept of haunted apartments delivered this film about a struggling TV star desperate to reboot his career by making a show about staying in a stigmatized property, that is, a property where someone's died. This is getting a sequel in 2025 that looks to ramp up the concept even more, promising a wider range of properties to scare the audience with. Director Jiro Nagai builds on the short scene from Kisaragi Station into this fully fleshed out horror experience about a young woman who inspects a cheap apartment in Tokyo only to be sucked into another world where the residents of the apartment can be found trying to escape from a demonic looking woman. The whole movie is in the first person perspective, featuring a series of one long cut takes and has a very clever ending. So there we have it, a fresh batch of J-horror movie recommendations that will take your tastes and knowledge of Japanese movies beyond the big 3. I hope you've enjoyed these recommendations. I would be interested to know if you've seen any of them and what your opinion is. And of course, if there's movies that you think I should watch or I should have put on this list, obviously leave a comment down below with those titles as well. Now keep an eye out for more recommendations like this, and don't forget to subscribe to SHOCKMANIA, like, subscribe, all that jazz, and I'll catch you next time.